There has been some chaos recently in YouTube land. Donut Media and Hoonigan, two automotive media empires with nearly 15 million subscribers each, are experiencing a big loss of hosts after investment firms got involved. Everyone, everywhere is talking about it, and it's not just viewers, it's people in the industry too, because it impacts us, our colleagues, our friends, and our lives. So I figured, as someone who's been in the industry for more than 10 years and worked with Donut, that we could talk about it here too. I'm Alanis King, and today I want to talk about why our favorite content creators seem to be leaving the big dogs of automotive YouTube. If you don't know me, I work full-time for Motor1, Motorsport.com, and Inside EVs. I've had full-time jobs at Cars and Bids, Business Insider, and Jalopnik, and I've done contract work for a lot of companies, including Donut. I also have my own YouTube channel now, which is this. I had a Formula One podcast called DRS with Donut for 2 seasons, and I also appeared on a video on the main channel. I did a couple of scripts for the main channel, and it was all a lot of fun. I really enjoyed working with Donut, and I know all of you know that the on-camera talent is great, but there are so many people behind the scenes, writers, producers, editors, everybody else, who are also making that stuff top tier. They are incredibly talented. And despite having a huge listenership, our show got canceled. It's a reality of the industry and a reality of the everlasting chase for profit. While I've met a lot of people at Donut and seen some of the behind the scenes over there, I'm not in the loop about this exact situation. So I'm going to tell you about the automotive media landscape as a whole and why I think more and more people are going to break off and start their own channels. After all, that's exactly what I did. In this video, I want to run through a few things. First, what's going on at Donut, Hoonigan, and other big YouTube channels, and how it impacts the industry as a whole. Second, what happens when investment firms get involved with media companies. Third, the pros of working for a big media company. Fourth, the cons of doing that. And lastly, what I think will happen going forward with these big channels like Donut, Hoonigan, BigTime, and others. First, what is going on? We're going to focus on Donut and Hoonigan for now because they're experiencing similar things. Hoonigan is most closely associated with co-founder and rally legend Ken Block, who very tragically died at 55 years old in early 2023 in a snowmobile crash. Ken was the definition of the cool racing guy. He was a stuntman to his core, and he embodied car enthusiasm, but make it edgy, at every age. So much of Ken's legacy is tied to how cool of a person he was, and also his extreme rally Gymkhana videos, which went on the Hoonigan YouTube channels. The Gymkhana videos were beautifully shot, edited, choreographed, and driven, and they were works of art. In 2021, Hoonigan merged with aftermarket company Wheel Pros, which was backed by private investment firm Clearlake Capital. In December 2023, nearly a year after Ken died, Clearlake tweeted about new Hoonigan president and COO Vance Johnston, and this tweet made the rounds because in it, Vance was wearing a suit and tie. It felt like the opposite of the image that Ken and Hoonigan built, and people started to worry about the future. In the past year, we have seen video after video from big Hoonigan stars about why they left, and they've gone on to have their own YouTube channels and be very successful at them. I find that these statements are often really vague about what happened, and I have been on the other end of making those statements before. There are a couple of reasons for this. One, people can sign agreements with the companies they've left, saying that they can't really say much. And two, people don't want to jeopardize their relationships because they might need a job in the future. Donut is also wildly successful on YouTube, and in recent history, they've been defined by their 5 main hosts: Zach Jobe, Jeremiah Burton, James Pumphrey, Nolan Sykes, and Justin Freeman. Donut is known as the cool, laid-back, knowledgeable car people who pose for a lot of merch photos and get greasy working on cars. They're aspirational, and those 5 hosts have been a central part of Donut's image. Not only do they sell hella merch because they make it look cool, just like Hoonigan did, but they were also a critical part of Donut's Zoomies merchandise deal. In late 2021, venture equity-backed media company Recurrent Ventures acquired Donut. 3 years later, Jobe and Jeremiah made their Why We're Leaving Donut video and posted it on their new joint channel called BigTime. That was 2 weeks ago, and BigTime already has more than 1 million subscribers. Donut has about 9 million. Jobe and Jeremiah's first BigTime video since their announcement, which is a project car Nissan S14 build, is outdoing Donut's most recent video nearly threefold. And unfortunately for the remaining Donut hosts, who I really like as people and presenters, a lot of the comments on their videos are just about the situation at Donut. In their goodbye video, Jobe and Jeremiah were generally pretty positive about their time at Donut. Jeremiah was there for 5 years and said he started making a $60,000 salary. That was about what I was making at Jalopnik at the time, and I was a very low-level staff writer. So for that level, it was a pretty normal salary. Jobe said Donut wasn't quite what he signed up for, and over time, it got further and further away from that. They also said that Donut experienced a ton of growth during COVID, and it did, just like every other YouTube channel during that time. They talked about overworking themselves during COVID and how the big turning point was when Donut got sold. They said things changed, and there was a lot of emphasis on growing the channel. They talked about having to make videos that would do well in the eyes of the money people, instead of just doing what they wanted to do. They also said they had ideas rejected in that context, and how, as a creative person, that's hard. Jobe and Jeremiah will be extremely successful as BigTime on YouTube. They already are, and a lot of that base came from Donut. That brings us to our second segment. What happens when investment firms get involved at media companies? This happens a lot, and it's not always a bad thing. I've been through it multiple times personally, and I've only had 4 full-time jobs. When media companies grow quickly or have a large base anyway, investment firms often swing on by to make an offer. And as owners of the media company, this is a weird spot to be in. You know, if you sell, that things will change. But it's also really tempting to cash in when things are hot. It's kind of hard for the owners to resist. When I worked with Donut, numbers were a big deal. It's ultimately why our podcast got canceled. I'm not going to say exact numbers because I don't know if I can, but the one time I saw a comparison between our podcast and Donut's main one, Pass Gas, we did about half of the numbers they did. And we were a much younger show. It was pretty good. But ultimately, we got the idea that it wasn't lucrative enough, so we went bye-bye. And it was really sad to leave our audience. The downside of investment firms is they sometimes take a company that's been made successful by the knowledge and crowd growth work of the creative team, then implement changes the creative team tells them won't work. Let's talk about Jalopnik. We were a website built on fun conversations, hot takes, and an extremely engaged audience. But in the years after we got bought by an investment firm, that changed to chasing views and doing slideshows, a way to inflate metrics for advertisers because people had to click around on the page more. But regular viewers and users know they're being used for watch time and clicks, and the audience gets upset. Often they get upset with us as the creative team because we're the people they see, but we're upset about it too. The creative team at Jalopnik would always fight back against those changes because we knew it wasn't what our audience wanted. If you get more clicks from fewer people and those people keep eroding away, you ultimately end up at a net negative. Not only that, but you start avoiding bigger, more expensive projects in favor of cheaper, easier ones. Maybe you started watching a YouTube channel because of the project car builds, but over time, that morphed into listicles. Those listicles open the channel up to a broader but less engaged audience, so those people are less likely to come back. And creative people know that returning viewers and users are the backbone of our creations. But sometimes the new money people don't. In a lot of these cases, the turmoil and talent loss eventually erodes the audience the staff worked so hard to build, and they leave, taking more of that audience with them, like Jobe and Jeremiah did. All of that sounds very doom and gloomy, but it brings us to our next topic, the pros of working at these companies. And there are a lot of them. For one, these companies help creative people grow our creations. Jobe and Jeremiah could have been successful on their own, but Donut's fast-growing platform introduced them to a wider audience. That audience grew to love them and eventually followed them when they left. Another pro is security. Media layoffs happen all the time, no matter how you perform. But while you have a job, you have a salary, benefits, and steady work. That is not always the case when you're on your own. Maybe you don't have a huge audience yet, or you're freelancing. Freelance media invoices don't always get paid late, but they often do. Not only do you have to track those invoices, do estimated taxes, and sometimes chase your money, but when times get tough, freelance budgets are usually the first to get cut. It's just not as steady and it's risky. The guaranteed income from a regular job can also be a huge factor when you look at something like starting your own YouTube channel. YouTube can pay me whatever it wants from the advertising dollars it makes from my videos, and that can change over time. I don't have any say in it like I might while negotiating a salary. You also don't start rolling in money until your views are top tier. To make videos on my channel right now is not even close to financially sustainable, but I hope it will be someday. That's just not the case when you accept a job and a salary and you go to work on Monday. There's also the networking and access that these companies provide. Let me talk about me specifically. I met all of the wonderful people I work with at Motor One in previous jobs, and not only do we get to create really cool stuff together, but they're there for me when times get hard, and vice versa. I also have my own YouTube channel right here where I review cars. But if I did not have deep connections in the automotive industry by working here for 10 years, I wouldn't be able to do the things I do. I have lots of manufacturer and fleet relationships, and they send me cars. If I didn't have that, I could go to dealers or private owners and borrow cars from them. But the logistics of that are really constrained, especially because with private owners, you really need production insurance to cover yourself and them. I don't regret any of my jobs at media companies, and I love my current one. I think a lot of people would say the same. But there are cons of working at media companies, and one of the most persistent is that you see media turmoil happen again and again. Turmoil doesn't just impact your income and livelihood, it impacts the creations you've built. Take our donut podcast, DRS. We had such a great audience we could talk back and forth with. We had inside jokes and weekly segments and this creation we really loved. But when it was time to shut it down, we had no say, and we had to say goodbye to all of that. Unless you have an agreement in place that says you get to keep the IP, the RSS feed, or the channel, which never really happens, it's over when the company says it's over. And we're in creative for a reason. We love to do creative things and build these audiences. But to know that it can end whenever is really hard. Another con of working at media companies is exactly what Jeremiah and Jobe said. You pitch something you think is really great, and it gets shelved for something that's less labor-intensive and cheaper to create. This isn't always the case, but it can be. Another hard thing is that media companies don't often have systems in place that reward people for creating something that goes mega viral or is really successful. There often aren't bonus systems or other rewards in place other than, "Great job, dude," to reward you for what you did. The creative process at a media company also involves a lot of people. If you do your own thing, you can cut that ladder down. My YouTube channel is just my husband and I. I do the narrative, so I write the scripts and fact check them, and he does the visuals. He films the videos and edits them. Together, we can make minor changes or comment on things that each other does, but we're not making wholesale changes. What we create is our own thing. And that's not always the case at a media company. We've reached the final part of this video, the reason you all clicked on it. What I think will happen with Donut, BigTime, Hoonigan, and all of these other big channels going forward. Being on the internet is all about listening to your audience, making sure they got what they came for, and taking care of the people you work with. When you stray from that, things get hairy. Brands like Donut and Hoonigan can come back from setbacks like this. It's possible to reignite an audience after that audience feels like you've wronged them by revamping things and giving them something really special. But that takes creative work and listening to creative people. I also think the landscape for independent creators will become very interesting. As branching out on your own becomes more popular, the people who did that will become more of the norm, not the outliers, potentially opening ourselves up to people getting tired of us. When people get used to what you do, like they did with Donut and Hoonigan, they become more likely to criticize you. Channels like BigTime with Jobe and Jeremiah will experience immediate success, like they already have, and get congratulated for returning to their roots. But over time, that channel will become the norm, and people will want more input on what they're doing with it. They'll have to evolve the videos they're making over time so people don't get bored, but also not revolutionarily change them and make people mad. I've been on YouTube for less than a year and I started from scratch, but this is already something I think about every day. Already big creators who really deliver on what their audience wants, like Cletus McFarlane for example, will be fine. They're legacy acts, they seem to treat employees and fans well, and ultimately, people who watch someone like Cletus watch him for car projects and Freedom Factory. That's what he gives them, and that's why he's successful. People know that when they click on one of his videos, they're gonna get what they're expecting, and they know they won't waste their time on it. People starting their own YouTube channels is a good thing. I did it too, but we ultimately all need a platform to exist on. And unless we already have a giant audience and can sell really good ad deals, we're still beholden to the dollars YouTube pays us. It is very, very difficult to create your own platform, bring an audience there, and keep all of the profits. So you just have to pick the platform that works best for you and roll with it. Even though BigTime is only a couple of weeks old, Jobe and Jeremiah will have the views, the audience, and the relationships to make it fully sustainable and profitable. My goal is for this channel to eventually be that too. Thanks for watching. If you like car reviews and want to subscribe, I'd love to have you. And if you want to talk in the comments, I'll be there. Bye!